In this segment, we'll be discussing two types of agencies, licenses, and what it means to sell your work with exclusivity. The first segments of this course are a little dry, I have to say, but I assure you that they are necessary and will give you a very good head start in stock photography. So please bear with me, and soon we'll be looking into more fun stuff. The first thing to know is that not all stock agencies operate in the same way. There are two business models adopted by stock agencies. One is called macro stock and the other micro stock. And I know they sound really familiar, especially with my accent. So I'll be making a point of pronouncing both macro and micro stock very clearly so that the information doesn't get confused. This course will focus on micro stock, but it's important to understand the difference between them, as your initial choice might influence the future of your files in regards to licensing. That's going to make more sense in a moment. So let's start with micro stock. As the name says, micro stock focuses on smaller clients with smaller budgets. Microstock agencies license images under a royalty-free type of contract. This means that clients are allowed to use the licensed images perpetually, non-exclusively, and as many times as they wish within a certain usage. The maximum certain usage I'm referring to varies between stock agencies, but usually refers to number of printed copies and campaign budget, for instance. Clients will have a choice of extending this maximum usage by paying a premium for what is known as an extended or enhanced license. This license follows the same principle as a standard license, but usually means that the client can use the image for larger campaigns rather than just smaller ones. Extended licenses obviously also give the photographer higher royalties. And the good news is that if you don't want to get into that, most websites will ask photographers to opt in or out of extended licenses. And this is usually done once you have your first submission accepted and your contributor account is officially open with them. So you can change this later if you change your mind, of course, but it's good to make up your mind before you start selling. Remember, always read carefully the contributor agreement for each agency that you intend to join. If in doubt, just get in touch with the agency support and ask for a clarification. There are countless examples of microstock agencies. They are the most popular, but some of the best known include Shutterstock, iStock Photo, and Fotolia. The other type of stock agencies that we'll discuss is called macro stock, also called traditional stock. And traditional because really they were the first type of photography agency to work with photographers' stock to work, or back work. Also, as the name says, macro stock agencies focus on the benefits or clients with bigger budgets. Macro stock licenses images using either a royalty-free or a rights-managed type of contract. We have already discussed royalty-free contracts. Now, rights-managed contracts, they are very different as they draw more limitations to the usage of the licensed files. And these limitations might be in relation to geographical location, type of media, length of time, and type of industry, amongst other things. The more rights the client chooses to license the image for, say, the more expensive the license becomes. Rights-managed licenses are also more expensive because the client is paying for the exclusive use of an image within the parameters that they've chosen. For instance, a client might license your image for exclusive use in the UK, say, for 4 months on printed media only. So those are the specs. They are going to pay a certain amount for that, for those limitations or for that exclusivity. Examples of agencies that operate a macro stock format include Getty Images and Corbis. And this type of format, macro stock, was the standard format for image licensing until a few years ago when micro stock started operating. Now that we have seen that macro stock agencies sell for more and can give you more royalties, why should you even bother to invest time and just put your work in micro stock agencies? Well, the answer to that is that macro stock agencies usually sell less often than micro stock agencies, and they bring a lot more royalty per sale, usually much higher than micro stock. But micro stock, on the other hand, sells more often, for very little, but for more often. The reasoning here is that the low profit per sale in micro stock is offset by the larger amount of small sales that you make. So we have just seen the differences between rights-managed and royalty-free licenses. Let's just highlight one of the differences that might become an issue if you're not careful, the exclusivity issue. It is important to remember that once you make your photos available under a royalty-free license, the clients will have perpetual allowance to use your image. as many times as they wish as well. So it doesn't need to be now, but maybe sometime in future. This means that you have no control over when and where your photo will be used. And this also means that you cannot offer it with exclusivity anymore because of that same reason. And it just renders the file unsuitable to convert to rights managed at a later stage, even if you remove the image from all royalty-free agencies that you used to contribute to. Rights managed clients are paying for a premium for exclusivity, but you cannot possibly ensure this exclusivity if your file has been licensed under a royalty-free contract before, or licensed through microstock agency, in other words. Let's think of an example to make exclusivity clearer. Let's imagine two clients, say John and Claire, licensing the same image in different places. So John, for instance, has a small cafe and licensed one of your images of a croissant as royalty-free through Shutterstock. John is aware, of course, that the same image might have been used before by other people, before he licensed it, and might be used again in future. But he is happy to pay a lower price to license the file anyway and go with the risk of having the competitor use the same file. John uses the file for whatever, like his menus in the cafe. A while later, you decide that your croissant picture is just doing so well and has the potential to sell for larger campaigns. You decide then to remove it from all microstock agencies and submit it to Getty Images instead, which is a macrostock agency, hoping for larger royalties. Meanwhile, Claire is looking for a new hero image for her campaign, in this new marketing campaign, say. And Claire, of course, needs to ensure that neither the company's competitors nor any other parties will use this chosen image for the duration of the campaign. So she needs exclusivity for that length of time. So she chooses to look for rights managed images on Getty's website. Claire chooses your croissant photo again and ensures that all her uses are secured exclusively for the duration of the campaign. So she did everything right. But after the campaign is launched, say, Claire sees another party using the same image in their adverts. That happens to be John, who has decided to reuse the croissant image that he had licensed a while back to run a small campaign online, say. Now, if that happened, Claire would seek clarification with Getty, who would state that the photographer, you, had ensured them that the photo in question was being licensed exclusively through Getty. And in turn, Getty turns to you for an explanation. In this situation, John is not in breach of a contract. He has actually perpetual permission to use your image, albeit non-exclusively. Claire is not in breach of contract either. She is using the image under the specifications that she paid for. In this situation, unfortunately, the only party in breach of the contract is you. You agreed to license your image exclusively through Getty, even though we could not ensure that would be possible, the exclusivity. That is, of course, a very bad situation to be in and might lead to serious legal problems. And if you run a Google search, you'll find examples of situations in which this happened. Sometimes they're quite hilarious, sometimes not so. So how can you avoid this issue and still enjoy the benefits of both worlds, the macro and micro stock agencies? One of the choices is you can have a portfolio for micro stock and another for exclusive sales through macro stock. But the bottom line here, what I want you to get out of this lesson here, is that you can convert a rights managed image into a royalties free one as long as all the license periods have elapsed already. But you cannot convert an image that has ever been licensed as royalty free into a rights managed, because you cannot ensure the exclusivity anymore. Another problem that you might have already spotted is that should competitors choose to license images used for the campaigns from royalty-free sites, they might end up using the same image for a competing campaign. And as unlikely as this is, it has actually happened before. And again, I recommend just Google it and you find some hilarious situations in which that happened. It is worth noting that some royalty-free agencies will also encourage contributors to license exclusively through them by offering higher commissions per sale. But how can they offer exclusivity under a royalty-free contract? And well, they cannot really. In this case, what happens is the exclusivity they are referring to is not about the image not being available to other people, but about the image not being available elsewhere online. In other words, clients will not find the same image on other agencies, but several people can license the same images from that one website to which you contribute exclusively to, that one image. It's important to remember as well that exclusivity relates to the visual aspect of the photograph, not about the single file. What it means is that if I take several shots of a model within or with the same makeup, same styling, and same lighting, I cannot offer one of these images as exclusive and the other ones as royalty free. They are pretty much the same picture, just different moments, So just be sensible. If you really must submit content from the same shoot to macro and micro stock agencies, you need to ensure that only images that are sufficiently different from each other are licensed under the same contract, or that you only submit as royalty free to both macro and micro. That's an option as well. Another thing to remember if you have two portfolios is that you should not submit your good images to one and the bad images to another. In fact, what I would say is don't submit your images to anything. Don't even put them online. Just keep them in the dark in your basement. You really don't want people seeing them as examples of your work if you find them bad. Don't throw them away, however. Just kind of keep them somewhere. A better approach is to select the images that you feel have more potential for big sales for macro stock, say, that is rights managed, and the everyday good images for micro stock. Maybe it's just one approach, but you can find your own, really. I hope this segment doesn't scare you too much, but it is important that you get familiar with the legal aspects of your photography once you start selling through stock. There will be more discussions on the subject throughout the course, specifically when we talk about model and property releases. But please remember that the laws keep on changing and that it's up to you really to keep in the loop. The good news is that you don't have to become an attorney. The stock agencies, they are generally good at informing you of any major shifts in law that are likely to affect your work.